It was a cold, misty morning when Alex received the call. The voice on the other end was shaky but urgent. "There's an abandoned house near the old mill," the caller said. "I've been hearing dogs barking for days. I think they're trapped. Please, you have to help them." Alex, a 32-year-old animal rescuer with over a decade of experience, didn't hesitate. He grabbed his rescue kit, a backpack filled with leashes, treats, a first aid kit, and a flashlight, and headed out the door. His van, a beat-up but reliable vehicle, was already stocked with blankets, water, and dog food. As he drove through the quiet streets of the small town, his mind raced. Abandoned houses were often dangerous, rotting floors, unstable structures, and sometimes even squatters. But the thought of dogs suffering pushed him forward. The house was exactly as the caller had described, a crumbling structure surrounded by overgrown weeds and broken fences. The windows were shattered and the front door was boarded up. Alex parked his van and approached cautiously, his boots crunching on the gravel path. The barking was faint but unmistakable. It came from inside the house, a mix of desperate cries and weak whimpers. Alex's heart ached. He knew that sound. It was the sound of animals in distress. He circled the house, looking for a way in. The side window was partially broken, just wide enough for him to squeeze through. He shone his flashlight inside, revealing a dark, cluttered room. The floor was littered with debris, broken furniture, empty cans, and shattered glass. Taking a deep breath, Alex climbed through the window. The air inside was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Alex's flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a scene that made his stomach churn. 5 dogs were huddled together in a corner, their eyes wide with fear. They were thin, their ribs visible under matted fur, and their tails tucked between their legs. One of them, a small terrier with a patch of white fur on its chest, limped forward. Its paw was injured, leaving a trail of blood on the floor. The other dogs, a German Shepherd mix, a Labrador, a Beagle, and a Pit Bull, stayed back, growling softly. Alex knelt down, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here to help." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a handful of treats. The terrier sniffed the air and took a cautious step forward. Alex held out his hand, letting the dogs sniff him. Slowly, the terrier took a treat from his palm. One by one, Alex worked to gain the dog's trust. The German Shepherd was the most hesitant, barking and baring its teeth whenever Alex got too close. But with patience and gentle words, even the shepherd began to relax. Using leashes and harnesses from his kit, Alex secured each dog. The terrier, now named Lucky, was the first to be carried out. Alex wrapped him in a blanket and placed him gently in the van. The Labrador and Beagle followed, their tails wagging weakly as they realized they were being saved. The Pit Bull and German Shepherd were the last. The Pit Bull, despite its intimidating appearance, was surprisingly calm, but the shepherd was still wary, growling as Alex approached. It took nearly an hour, but eventually Alex managed to leash the shepherd and guide it out of the house. The drive back to the rescue center was quiet. The dogs, exhausted from their ordeal, curled up on the blankets and fell asleep. Alex kept glancing at them in the rearview mirror, his heart swelling with relief. At the center, the team was waiting. The dogs were immediately taken to the medical bay, where they were examined by the vet. Lucky's paw was cleaned and bandaged, and the others were treated for dehydration, malnutrition, and minor injuries. Over the next few weeks, the dogs began to recover. The Labrador, named Max, was the first to regain his strength. His playful personality emerged, and he quickly became a favorite among the staff. The Beagle, Daisy, was shy but sweet, while the Pit Bull, Rocky, proved to be a gentle giant. The German Shepherd, named Shadow, was the most challenging. He was wary of humans and often growled when approached. But Alex spent hours with him, sitting quietly in his kennel and offering treats. Slowly, Shadow began to trust him. As the dogs healed, the team began looking for forever homes. Max was adopted by a young family with 2 kids, while Daisy found a home with an elderly couple. Rocky went to a man who had experience with pit bulls and was looking for a loyal companion. Shadow's transformation was the most remarkable. Once fearful and aggressive, he became a calm and loving dog. He was adopted by a woman who worked as a therapist and wanted a dog to accompany her to sessions. Lucky, the terrier, stayed at the center. His injured paw had healed, but he had become a mascot for the rescue. Visitors loved his cheerful demeanor, and he often greeted new arrivals with a wagging tail. The rescue of the 5 dogs from the abandoned house had a ripple effect. News of their story spread through the town, inspiring others to take action. Donations poured into the center, allowing them to expand their facilities and rescue more animals. Alex became a local hero, but he didn't see it that way. For him, it was just another day on the job. "These dogs deserved a second chance," he said in an interview, "and I was lucky enough to be able to give it to them." The abandoned house was eventually demolished and the land was turned into a park. A small plaque was placed at the entrance, commemorating the dogs who had been saved there. As Alex sat in the park one evening, watching Lucky play in the grass, he reflected on the journey. It had been exhausting and emotionally draining, but it was worth it. The dogs were safe, happy, and loved. He thought about the countless other animals still out there, waiting for someone to save them. It was a daunting task, but Alex knew he wouldn't stop. For every abandoned house, every scared whimper, and every wagging tail, he would be there.
Because for Alex, saving dogs wasn't just a job, it was a calling. While the dogs were recovering, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their story. How had they ended up in that abandoned house? Who had left them there? Determined to find answers, he decided to investigate. He started by visiting the local animal control office. The officers there were familiar with the abandoned house but had no record of dogs being kept there. "It's possible they were dumped," one officer said. "People sometimes abandon pets in remote areas, hoping they'll fend for themselves." Alex wasn't satisfied with that explanation. The dogs had been in relatively good condition, aside from their injuries and malnutrition. They weren't strays, they had clearly been someone's pets. Next, he visited the neighbors. The house was isolated, but a few families lived within a mile radius. One elderly woman recalled seeing a man in a pickup truck parked near the house a few weeks ago. "He had a couple of dogs with him," she said. "I thought it was odd, but I didn't think much of it at the time." Alex's curiosity grew. He posted flyers around town asking for information about the dogs. A few days later, he received a call from a man named Tom. Tom was a construction worker who had been driving past the abandoned house when he saw the flyer. "I think I know who those dogs belong to," he said. "There's a guy named Rick who used to live around here. He had a bunch of dogs, but he lost his job and had to move. I heard he couldn't take them with him." Alex arranged to meet Tom at a local diner. Over coffee, Tom explained that Rick had been a dog lover but had fallen on hard times. "He tried to find homes for them, but no one would take them," Tom said. "Last I heard, he left town. I guess he couldn't bear to take them to a shelter." Alex's heart sank. He understood the pain of having to give up a pet, but abandoning them in an abandoned house was unforgivable. Still, he wanted to hear Rick's side of the story. With Tom's help, Alex tracked down Rick's new address in a nearby city. He drove there the next day, unsure of what to expect. Rick lived in a small apartment, and when he opened the door, he looked surprised to see Alex. "Are you Rick?" Alex asked. "Yeah," Rick replied cautiously. "Who are you?" Alex introduced himself and explained why he was there. Rick's face fell as he listened. "I didn't know what else to do," he said, his voice breaking. "I couldn't afford to keep them, and no one would take them. I thought they'd be better off in the house than on the streets." Alex could see the guilt and regret in Rick's eyes. "You could have reached out for help," he said gently. "There are organizations that could have assisted you." Rick nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know I messed up. I just hope they're okay." Alex told Rick about the dog's recovery and how they had found new homes. Rick was relieved but still heartbroken. "I miss them every day," he said, "especially Shadow. He was my best friend." Alex hesitated, then made a decision. "Would you like to see him?" he asked. Rick looked up, surprised. "You'd let me?" Alex nodded. "I think it would be good for both of you." A few days later, Rick visited the rescue center. Shadow, now much healthier and more confident, was in the play area. When Rick walked in, Shadow froze. For a moment, the two just stared at each other. Then, with a joyful bark, Shadow ran to Rick, wagging his tail furiously. Rick knelt down, tears streaming down his face as he hugged his old friend. "I'm so sorry, boy," he whispered. "I never meant to hurt you." Alex watched from a distance, his own eyes misty. It was a bittersweet moment, a reminder of the bond between humans and animals and the pain of separation. Rick visited Shadow regularly after that. He even started volunteering at the rescue center, helping with the other dogs. It was his way of making amends, of giving back to the animals he had once failed. Alex admired Rick's determination. "It takes courage to face your mistakes," he said one day. "Not everyone can do that." Rick smiled. "I'm just grateful for the second chance, and I'm grateful to you, Alex. You saved them when I couldn't." The experience with Rick and the dogs, inspired Alex to start a new initiative at the rescue center. He called it Second Chances, a program aimed at helping pet owners who were struggling to care for their animals. The program provided resources like food, medical care, and temporary housing, as well as counseling and support. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. Alex knew that not every story would have a happy ending, but he was determined to try. Months passed, and the rescue center continued to thrive. Lucky the terrier became a symbol of hope and resilience. Visitors loved hearing his story, and he often accompanied Alex to schools and community events where they educated people about animal welfare. The abandoned house was gone, but its memory lived on. The park that replaced it became a popular spot for dog owners, a place where people and their pets could enjoy the outdoors. Alex often visited the park, sitting on a bench and watching the dogs play. And it was a reminder of why he did what he did, of the lives he had touched and the lives he had saved. As the sun set one evening, Alex sat in the park with Lucky by his side. He thought about the future, the dogs he would rescue, the people he would help, the challenges he would face. It wasn't an easy path, but it was his path, and he wouldn't have it any other way, because for Alex, saving dogs wasn't just a job, it was a call, and he knew he would answer that call for the rest of his life.